Yeah, we can start, Rishikesh.
Yeah. Very good afternoon to all of you, all the participants. And very good afternoon to today's speaker, CA Ravi Somani ji. He has joined. Let us start today's session on the GST series. I request the chairman, CA Rajesh Agarwal, to deliver his opening remarks, please.
Thank you, Rishikesh. Good evening, friends. Today's topic is precautions in finalization of books of accounts, which is very important because all we are aware of, there are so many specified dates in the GST law. You can take credit up to this date, credit note issued up to these days. So many restrictions, and we should take care before finalization of any books of accounts. So this topic we have chosen because there should not be any loss of our client during compliances. So I think this will be the best topic which add value in our routine practice. Thanks, Ravi sir, for accepting our invitation. Over to you, Rishikesh.
Thank you, Rajesh ji. I now proceed to introduce today's speaker with all of you. Just pardon me for a second. Yeah. Today's speaker, CA Ravi Kumar Somani, is a qualified chartered accountant and is pursuing LLB. He is an extremely passionate indirect tax professional with experience in performing health checks reviews, providing advisory and litigation support in the matters concerning indirect taxes. He has given lectures at various trade and professional forums such as ICAI, MCCI, CII, NSEIN, BCAS, WMTPA, etc. He has authored 3 books on indirect taxes. The names of the books are Practical Guide to GST on Automobile Industry. It is published by Tax Sutra jointly with Bharat Law Book House. Practical Guide to GST Audit and Certification, which is published by Bloomsbury. Self-Study Guide to Indirect Taxes. It's published by Asia Law House. He has also written various analytical and issue-based articles, research papers, and legal updates on indirect tax matters, which are published in various newsletters as well as online platforms. He loves doing extensive research on the subject and solving critical indirect tax problems. His mission is to spread indirect tax knowledge, solve indirect tax problems, and to raise voice against unscrupulous practices. I am very much delighted that Ravi ji is here today. He is also a regular contributor to the newsletter of Pune ICI. So on behalf of Pune ICI, I welcome CA Rishikesh Badwe, Treasurer of Pune branch. Welcome CA Ravi Kumar Somani ji. And I hand over the charge to Ravi ji. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rishikesh ji, for the introduction. And thank you, Rajesh sir, for considering me for the session. Today's topic, which is precautions to be taken while finalizing books of accounts. I would say very relevant topic. In fact, just prior to this particular session, I had a client, he had the exactly same problem. That, while finalizing books of accounts, we have issues, and GST law undergoing, regular changes, continuous changes. It is becoming very difficult for one to keep pace with the changes. One is, knowing that there is a change, understanding the change, analyzing and interpreting the change for various scenarios, and communicating the changes to the clients, and for clients, implementing the changes. So if the changes are once in a year, like in case of income tax, it is manageable. But in case of GST, every 2 to 3 months, there is a change. It becomes very, very difficult to manage. And that is where all the problems come in. So I'll start this session, but before going into the session, there is some disturbance at my end. There is some noise coming in at the background. So in case you feel that I'm not properly audible, please put it in the chat box so that I'll shift to some other cabin. And eventually the session has to be proper. Anywhere in the course of session you feel I'm not audible, just put it in the chat box, and I'll immediately change my location. And any questions or queries you have in the deliberation, just put it in the chat box. I would try to see if I can answer the queries then and there instead of taking it till the end. But in case I'm not able to see the chat box, then certainly we will take all the queries in the end of the session. Firstly, as far as GST is concerned, we all know that in 6 years' time in GST, the amendments or changes happen through GST Council. And GST Council meets once every 2 months, 3 months' time. And every time they meet, they come out with multiple changes. As early as yesterday, there has been a change on rate notification. So rates have been amended for certain commodities, which was proposed in the 48th GST Council meeting. So that is the most recent change that has happened. Now, one of the very big issues in GST is the ongoing litigation that is happening. And the worst part is that as of now, we do not have tribunal in place. Very recently, there was a news that in the Finance Act 2023 itself, they are going to bring an amendment and change the law to the extent of formation of tribunal. By any chance, if that happens, then probably I would say in a span of another year or so, year or little more than a year, we should have tribunal in place under GST. But then I have my own doubts whether tribunal will really be available at all the locations where they have mentioned, because there is clearly a shortage of judicial members, and there is also a shortage of infrastructure with the government. So considering these two constraints, even though the law is in place to appoint the members and get it rolling, that itself is a very big issue, which is, which will be there. Now coming to the topic on, precautions to be taken before closure of books of accounts. Now, when I say precautions to be taken before closure of books of accounts, I'm looking at 3 to 4 important aspects. One is systems and controls. What are the precautions to be taken at the systems, processes, or the controls end? What are the precautions to be taken at the balance sheet items, be it assets, liabilities? What are the precautions to be taken while finalizing income statements and the expenditure statements, and obviously the notes to accounts? There is a message in the chat box that my voice is not clear. By chance, if more people are of the same view, then please let me know. If not, just let me know that it is audible so that I have the clarity. Okay. So now coming to systems and controls point. Today, many organizations, they are focusing more on systems, processes, and controls rather than the end result. Because what they believe is that if the systems and processes are in place, then the chances of issues arising would drastically come down. And hence, as an auditor, as a reviewer, what is important for us to evaluate the client's systems and processes. Now, when I say this session to be there for the closure of books of accounts, let me tell you, it need not be for the purpose of statutory audit. Because in statutory audit, we may have a limited play, as far as GST is concerned. Maybe we may look at reconciliations and the matching of numbers. with electronic credit ledgers. But our role as a GST consultant, our role as someone who is supporting client in monthly GST compliance or in yearly filing of GST 9 and 9C statements, it becomes imperative for us to do all these activities and not merely number crunching. See, one fundamental issue that I have with GST, or with the way GST is being practiced, हमको ये लगता है कि GST लॉ में सिर्फ नंबर क्रंचिंग है. ये नंबर इधर से मैच करना है, वो नंबर उधर से मैच करना है, या रिकंसिलिएशन करना है. दैट्स ऑल. जीएसटी में ऑडिट में यही होता है, मंथली रिटर्न्स फाइलिंग में यही होता है. इसके अलावा कुछ है नहीं जीएसटी में. अनफॉर्चुनेटली दिस इज व्हाट प्रोफेशनल्स आर डूइंग. आई हैव सीन प्रोफेशनल्स जिनके लिए जीएसटी ऑडिट का मतलब है सिर्फ रिकंसिलिएशंस और नंबर मैचिंग एक्सरसाइज. सॉरी, if we feel GST is only a number matching exercise, then we are not doing justice to our clients. And I will communicate this today in our PPT. I will tell what more we can do beyond number matching exercise. Unfortunately, एक बहुत गलत जो जा रहा है सोसाइटी में. When I talk to so many students, when I talk to articles practice, it is very unfortunate. They believe there is no scope in GST practice because GST में सिर्फ मंथली रिटर्न भरना है और नंबर क्रंचिंग करना है, रिकंसिलिएशन करना है, इसके अलावा कुछ नहीं है GST में. This is what article students and other students believe about GST, and I just feel pretty about them that they don't know that what is the scope and coverage and what is that they're expected to do in the GST audits or GST monthly compliances. My duty in today's session is to give you a hindsight of what all possibilities are there in GST beyond monthly reconciliations and compliances. Just give me 2 minutes. There is some disturbance at the background. Maybe it is not coming to you, but I am facing some problem. So just give me 2 minutes. I'll again, immediately start my deliberation. I'm finding it a little difficult to continue with that noise.
तीनशे 53 स्क्वेअर फुटाचे 2 शेजारचे सिंगल रूम विठ्ठल मंदिरापाशी आहे. पेमेंटच्या इथं सांगितलं 80 त्याला उत्तर दिले.
तो किती म्हणतोय?
300
मोठा आहे ना तो. मिळाला तर छानच होऊन जाईल. हो ते फोन लावत होते लागत. ओमकार फोन का लागत नाही मध्ये. फोनच लागत नाही. मी लावला तर लागेल.
Extremely sorry for that inconvenience. I hope my voice is audible now properly. If somebody can confirm me, that would be great. And okay, great. So perfect. So essentially, first and foremost, let us look at various systems, controls, and processes. What is that we need to really verify as far as processes and controls are concerned? I think someone needs to mute the mic. Rishikesh ji, आपको mic अपना mute करना पड़ेगा sir. There is a background noise coming from you. Excellent, perfect. Yeah. So when it comes to GST audit, when I see आज का जो session है, we will be looking at closure of books of accounts as a statutory auditor, what work we need to do. We look at the monthly compliances that we do in GST. We'll also look at what is that when we do in the 99C. Of course, I'm not going to take you through the form 99C, but then what is that we need to do as an auditor, as a consultant, as a reviewer? That is more important for me. Now, first and foremost is flow of entry into the accounting systems. Client के accounting system में जो entry pass हो रही है, what we do is we believe that that accounting entry is final, it is sacrosanct, and there is no issue with it. What we need to do is understand how this accounting entry is flowing into the client's accounting system, and that is very, very important, because that is going to decide what is the level or depth and accuracy at which you can rely on the accounting entries that are being passed. For example, for one of the clients where we were doing the GST audit, what we noted was that at the time of passing the purchase order, the system was allowing them to punch different figures from what is there in invoice, which means, let us say in the purchase order, it is written as GST rate is 18%, but the supplier has given the bill with GST rate of 12%. Ideally, the system should not allow. They have to again amend the purchase order. But then when the accounts payable team, when they are passing the entry, they have the rights to manually go and change the GST rate, manually go and change the place of supply, manually go and change the type of tax. So the bill has come with CGST, SGST, but the purchase order shows IGST. And the accounts payable team has the rights to change this manually. Now, this is extremely important, that be it for the sales or be it for the purchasers, what is the environment, whether it is complete automated environment or it is a manual environment. Let me tell you, the problems are there with both. If it is fully automated, also there are problems, because by any chance, if there is any issue with the automation, then it's a bigger issue, because it will lead to consistent problems. Okay. This is very important. Second, very, very important aspect when I look at systems and controls is understanding the walkthrough. When we do GST audit, what we need to do is start from the scratch. Let's say the client is filing GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. From where he is extracting the data, and how he is processing that data, so that from accounting data to the data that goes into GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B, what are the various activities that are taking place? Now I'll tell you what is that we need to do. हमको जो accountant है, accountant के पास में बैठना होगा, and we need to understand, let's say if you are filing GSTR 1, let me just see what all activities you do. Now what is going to happen with this is that first we will come to know about what are the activities which are happening manually, which are happening, which could easily be automated by a simple Excel tool. Forget about any, very sophisticated software. By putting some simple Excel formulas and macros, we can automate. And can we crash the time for the client? Client would be delighted to know that. Second, how these activities are happening. Whether it can lead to manual errors, whether there is too much human intervention in the way in which activities are happening, or how is it? Many times we see that the clients always have a complaint that from 4th or 5th to 20th, their team is completely busy in GST, which means almost 12 to 14 days in a month, the accountants or the tax team is completely busy in GST. So what is that they are doing? Is it something they are just spending time in activities that could be easily crashed, or is it something they are doing too much of manual activity? There was one client, when we actually gone into the detail of it, what he is doing is he is downloading all the Excel separately, and एक Excel को लेकर he is merging, और वो सिर्फ merge करने में 1 से 2 दिन जाते हैं, and it would be simply automated. So what is important is to taking the walkthrough. So a walkthrough लेने से हमको पता चलेगा what are the activities that are happening manually, what are the activities that are happening automatically, and What are the process gaps? If a client is continuously doing VLOOKUP and pivot, can this be made into a standardized format so that this repetitive action can be avoided? And let me tell you, this cannot happen unless we do the walkthrough. This will not happen with an interview. This will not happen with a questionnaire. We need to sit with the client for a one live GST or 1 or 3B that is being filed and understand the entire process so that we come to know what are the process gaps. Next, very, very important aspect is whether the client has a proper documented SOP for various steps carried out in the smooth GST compliances. Many times, one of the biggest problem with businesses is that their accountants are continuously changing. And it is becoming very difficult for them to have a proper transition plan in place. And most importantly, continuously train the team on GST aspects. So at least on key decisions taken by the organization, key stands taken, there has to be a documented standard operating procedure for the GST. It is very unfortunate that businesses would have standard operating procedures for various functions, but they don't feel the need for standard operating procedure for a tax function, which constitute 18% of their gross revenue, which is a very, very significant amount for any company. And any non-compliance over there can lead to large liabilities coming in. So important, depending upon the client, we need to recommend whether there is any SOP is required or not, what is the root cause for the error that has happened. Next, very, very important aspect is that what is the validity or authenticity of the system generated reports. काफी बार हमको ऐसा होता है हम that client has given the purchase register or client has given the sales register and we believe that this sales register is final and ये sales register में जो डेटा आया है एकदम परफेक्ट है बिकॉज क्लाइंट ने दिया है SAP से निकाला या टैली से निकाला तो इसमें तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं रहेगा and we simply consider those reports for filing our GST purpose. Now let me tell you, when we are doing audit around the system, it may be possible that the coding given through which the returns, these reports are generated, that itself may be wrong. I'll give you an example for one of our client. What we noted that there was a constant big difference between the 2A and 3B reconciliation coming for the client. I mean, for rest of all the clients, we had 95% matching. And for this client, it was coming close to 80-85%. And then we were thinking why there should be so much difference in 2A, 3B reconciliation for this client. And when we gone into the details, what we came to know, they are recording the incorrect details in their books of accounts. For example, let's say the supplier has given the bill by charging IGST. But the client has recorded or passed the entry as CGST, SGST, because in the purchase master or in the master records of the client, only Maharashtra GST number was maintained and the Haryana GST number was not maintained. And the system is picking the GST number from the master records instead of picking GST number from the vendor's tax invoice. This is how the coding was given by the ERP for generating the purchase register from system, which was a wrong coding, which means the purchase register which was coming out, there was flaw in the register itself. So it is very important for us to understand that the data that is coming out, what is the authenticity of data and what is the root from which the data is coming. We need to actually sit with the ERP team. So that is, we need to take probably, I would say, one step backwards and question the report that is coming. Next, very, very important aspect is we need to see whether the accounting system allows to extract reports for each registration separately. We all know that GSTR 9 and 9C has to be filed for each registration number separately. What we have seen in many of the cases, the clients are facing, especially multi-state clients, are facing a big time problem in only segregating their records. Let's say there's a purchase register, then he is taking time in segregating this for Maharashtra, Haryana, Gujarat, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh. But if these records can directly be extracted from the system, It would save hell amount of time, not just during monthly compliance, even during GST audit. In GST audit, especially for multi-state clients, the biggest problem is segregating the data for each and every GST number, because the data is coming at a PAN level. And to segregate the data at PAN level to GST number level, it takes about 30 to 40% of the time in the entire GST audit. Question that comes is, can there be some system in the accounting framework itself that at a click of a button, the data comes out? We can have the cost centers defined, and depending upon cost center, the data comes out. Why the manual activities needed? Next, very, very important aspect is reconciliation between invoicing system and the accounting system. Sometimes it happens that invoicing happens from a different software. Invoicing happens from a Salesforce or from the separate CRM software, but accounting takes place from SAP or Tally. The important question is, in the month end and in the year end mein to theek hai, year end mein things are in control, but in the month end, it could be possible that there is a spillover. There is an invoice that is raised from the invoicing module, but the accounting of that invoice actually took place in the next month. That is going to be very, very critical. This is something we have seen in one of our builder clients, where we actually went to their invoicing system, their CRM software, and extracted the data, and we found that there was a delay in posting of accounting in the sales, which was leading to interest liability coming in for them. Extremely important. And next, very, very important, very common issue, especially for small companies, is the backdated entries. Let me tell you, backdated entries is a crime in GST. If you are not putting a system to stop this backdated entries in GST, every month you will get the reconciliation notice from the department. Take this in writing from me. We put it very clear to our clients कि आप कुछ भी system बनाओ, but ये backdated entries pass करने का system आप बंद करो. नहीं तो you are going to face every month a GST notice. You will get it from the client. I'll give you one example. Very recently, there is an amendment in the GST law. If there is a difference between GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B, then government believes that you are short paying the tax, आप tax short pay कर रहे हो. Immediately you will get a letter from government to pay the tax in DRC 01B. You will get an intimation, and it will be system generated. No officer is going to click of a button, you will get a letter from department. If you don't give a justification for this letter within 7 days to the satisfaction of the officer, that is important. And if you don't give the justification within satisfaction of the officer, department can directly go for recovery proceedings, no show cause notice. This is the very recent amendment in the GST law. What I'm trying to say, backdated entries can lead to all these differences coming in. Second, you may also lose input tax credit. It will also lead to 2B mismatch on a month-on-month basis. So we need to communicate client that the system or the process of backdated entries has to change. Now let us come to some aspects relating to balance sheet items, or the जब balance sheet हम finalize कर रहे हैं तो क्या-क्या चीजें critical which we need to look at from GST perspective. But before that, if there are any questions, you can put it in the chat box. I'll try to answer them, or else I'll just move forward. Okay, let me take through. As and when the questions comes, I'll take it up. So now coming to balance sheet, first and foremost, we need to look at the equity. We need to see who are all the shareholders in the company, what are the holding companies, subsidiary companies, associated companies, who are the directors of the company. So all this data is going to be important for us to understand who are the related parties in the company. My question is, how many times while doing a GST audit, we have actually gone to the balance sheet and the notes to accounts and actually seen that who are the related parties to look at the implication from deemed supply and valuation perspective. If we have not seen, then we need to start doing this. Every time I'm going to tell about these various tips, this is beyond the number crunching. What is that we need to do in GST? So once we come to know who are the related parties, let me tell you the definition of related parties very, very wide as given under section 15 of the CGST Act. Once we identify that these are the related parties, these are the shareholders, holding companies, subsidiary companies, directors, then we need to see what are the transactions that have been taken place by with these parties. Now, all the transactions that have been taken place by with these parties, it has to be at a open market valuation. So the question that comes, sir, what is open market valuation? Your open market valuation kaise nikale? Let me tell you, open market value is a fair value that we need to make an assessment. Although there is a relaxation, if the other person is able to take input tax credit, then the valuation given would be adopted. But that does not mean that I put any ad hoc value. I have seen a client coming, sir, वैसे भी credit तो मिलेगा, तो हम सबको सर 100 रुपए का invoice raise कर देंगे, and that should solve the problem. I'm sorry, you cannot do that. There has to be at least a fair valuation. So whether the client is putting a fair valuation and how he is arriving at the fair valuation, that is a very important question that we need to ask. Next, very, very important aspect is that whether the company has got any transactions with the related parties without consideration. I'll give you an example. Let's say these are the group company. In the same group, there are multiple companies. And all the companies share the common premises, common stationery, common desk, common equipments, common infrastructure. But the rent is paid only by one company, and rest all companies don't pay any rent or anything for this infrastructure. The question is whether this company needs to cross-charge to all the companies for the common supply of services which is taking place. Answer is yes. Even if there is no consideration, GST is applicable. You need to raise invoice and charge GST on all the other group entities. Similarly, one of the very common transactions is, especially in multinational companies, there will be a holding company who is having the trademark license and IP, and that holding company would give the trademark license, IP, or drawings or whatever the logos to be used by the subsidiary company in India. Subsidiary company is using all these things, but the holding company is not charging anything for them. Hota hai kafi baar. Generally, what they do is that till the time you are making losses, we will not charge you. Once you start making profits, we will charge you. The question that comes is, in these cases, whether the subsidiary company in India needs to pay GST under reverse charge, considering it to be a deemed supply. तो जहां भी कंपनी के रिलेटेड कंपनीज है और उसमें एक कंपनी दूसरी कंपनी को कोई सर्विस दे रही है डायरेक्टली और इनडायरेक्टली, whether or not there is a charge of any consideration, GST has to be charged. So that is the precise reason I say that when we do GST audit, we need to go to the client's place. हमको क्लाइंट से बात करना चाहिए, बिजनेस को समझना चाहिए. जब तक हम बिजनेस को नहीं समझेंगे, we will never be able to come out with this kind of issues. Because आप अगर सिर्फ बैलेंस शीट को देखोगे, नंबर्स को देखोगे, GSTR 130 को देखोगे, तो आपको कभी ये सब चीजें समझ में नहीं आएगी. एक जो बहुत ही हॉट इशू चल रहा है GST में is in the context of guarantee commission. When the directors or the shareholders or the promoters give guarantee commission, personal guarantee to the company for taking loan, and they may charge commission, they may not charge commission, but still there is a supply of service. So even if they don't charge commission, GST is applicable because it is a transaction without consideration. Of course, there are some legal, issues to it, that it is not a service, it is not a supply. I'm not going to the legalities as of now. So this is on the related party transaction, the equity mix. Next, transactions which are purely in money, there is no GST implication. For example, dividends or investments, loans, there is no GST implication. Next, very, very important aspect is GST impact during mergers and acquisition. When there is a change in equity, we need to understand what is the GST implication. Fundamentally, we need to understand that when there is a change in equity, and let's say there is a merger, company A and company B are now merged into company C, or company A and company B are merged into company B, whatever. When there is a merger, there is a question of transfer of input tax credits. In the old company, there is already an input tax credit which needs to be transferred by filing ITC-02. The issue that comes is this will lead to two-way mismatch, because the supplier has already raised a bill with the GST number of the old company, but the recipient has claimed the input tax credit in the new company. Also come in the context of credit notes. The invoice was raised from the old company, but the credit note is going from the new company. Whether this is possible, very much possible, because now the old company is closed. There is no further transactions in the old company. So the invoice must have gone from the old company, but the credit note will go from the new company. Now, whether you can take adjustment of the credit note in the new company. So these are the spillover transactions that we need to analyze and look at the GST implications on the same. In my view, it is possible to adjust the credit note from the new company because eventually it's a merger and all documents, act, deed done in the name of the old company is deemed to have been done in the name of the new company. So next very, very important aspect to be looked at when it comes to mergers is that whether it is an activity of sale of going concern, where all the, the entire entity itself has been transferred as a BT or a business transfer agreement, or is it a transaction where assets and liabilities have been separately identified and sold? Now, let me tell you, if it is a sale of going concern, then it is not liable to GST. You can file ITC-02 and you can transfer the credits. But if it is a transaction where assets and liabilities are separately identified and then sold, it cannot be called as a, business transfer agreement. GST would be applicable on the assets. GST would be, needs to be charged based on identification. So very important that we look at the agreement. Kabhi-kabhi kya hota hai? Especially in the builders fraternity. BTA is made, business transfer agreement is made to transfer the entire business on a slump sale basis. But actually it is a transaction of sale of assets, which can have a big GST implication because the volumes and the stakes will be very, very high. So that is where we need to really assess the way in which the transaction has taken place. So these are a few aspects to be looked at as far as equity is concerned. Now, when it comes to current liabilities, first of all, we need to look at what is the nature of transaction, whether it is in the nature of unsecured loans or it is in the nature of advances. Sometimes it may so happen because in case of service sector, on the advances, GST is payable upfront. Immediately GST dena hota hai. Jaise advance milta hai. Businesses tend to show that amount as loan, assuming that anyway, the moment if we show it as a loan, GST liability can be postponed. So that is where we need to really check documentation that whether it is really in the nature of a loan or it is in the nature of advances, or advances are deliberately being converted into loans to avoid the GST liability upfront. Now, again, this is something very, very big issue in builders industry. Mobilization advance. Mobilization advance is very common in the infra companies, where the the government or various other contractor would give certain amount as a mobilization advance to start the project. Now the question that comes is whether GST is applicable on the mobilization advance, because generally when the mobilization advance comes, it doesn't come with GST. GST has to be borne from the pocket. मुझे 5% GST मेरी pocket से देना होता है, which is a very big amount. You just imagine. I mean, 18% GST has to be paid from the pocket. Now, for example, there is a project of 5 crores. 5 crore के project में, let's say the project is of 100 crores. And the customer says that I will give you 5% as the mobilization advance, which means 5 crores. The 5 crores has come as a mobilization advance, but the moment that money has come, almost 15% of that money immediately has to be paid to the government on account of GST on a come tax basis, which means from 5 crores, your 75 lakhs to 80 lakhs has straight away gone on account of GST. तो बिजनेस कैसे करोगे? जो पैसा आपने मोबिलाइज करने लगाया था, पहले तो आपने गवर्नमेंट को मोबिलाइज कर दिया सीधा सीधा. The question that comes is whether GST is applicable on the mobilization advance, or whether the mobilization advance is in the nature of bank guarantee. In my view, mobilization advance is in the nature of bank guarantee. It is an earnest money deposit. There is a judgment by Bombay Tribunal, I think Thermax Instrumentation. It's not liable for service tax. We need to look at whether this decision can be taken for the client. Similarly, in the case of retention money, in the infra projects, it is very common that there will be some retention money. You will find this retention money in the current liabilities, where some money is retained by the customer and it's not paid. And similarly, the money, the contractor also retains the money of the subcontractor. So this retention will straight away affect the GST working capital blockage. And second, it can also lead to reversal of input tax credit because payment is not made within 180 days. Now here, in my view, payment not being made within 180 days should not be applicable for retention money because there is no obligation to make the payment. I'll come to that a bit in more detail later. Correct? Similarly, security deposits. If security deposits are given, there is no GST liability. But when the security deposits are adjusted against the balances, that is where the GST liability is going to come in. Next, very, very important aspect is the long due creditors. If the payment is not made within 180 days to the creditors, then GST is going to be applicable. Let me tell you, earlier there was an anomaly in the law. There was, I would say, incorrectly drafted law, but now that anomaly has been removed from, I think, 1st of October 2022, which means if the payment is not made to vendor within 180 days, businesses would have to reverse ITC along with interest. So now we do not have the cushion of incorrect law. पहले हम बोलते थे there is no GSTR1, GSTR2, GSTR3. तो अभी ये तो आएगा नहीं reversal, and I'll tell you what, in the 5 years of GST implementation, hardly anybody has done compliance to this particular provision. But from now onwards, businesses would have to seriously think of complying because now they have amended the law. So अगर हम इसको comply नहीं कर रहे हैं, then we are in a problem going forward. Working capital blockage on long advances. काफी बार ऐसा होता है that I give advances to my suppliers, and my supplier deliberately take the advance along with GST. Let us say if I have to give 1 crore to the supplier as an advance, supplier needs to pay GST to government on that 1 crore. So supplier deliberately takes from me 1 crore 18 lakhs so that it is not hitting his pocket, but it is hitting my pocket. So we need to advise our clients that when they are making supplier advances, vendor advances, it is not with GST, it is without GST. so that the supplier is not blocking their 18%, 1/5 of their funds on account of GST. This is very important cash flow planning that we can suggest our clients. Next, very, very important is customer advances. Again, early payment of GST. So if the customer has given us the advance for a particular transaction, exactly reverse of what we discussed the above point, is are we taking the money with GST? If we are not taking money with GST, then we are actually paying it out of our own pocket, which is again impacting the working capital. And very important question that comes is whether we are adjusting at the time of invoicing. I'll come to that a bit more in detail in the coming slides. Similarly, in the current liabilities, we need to check employees, debtors, creditors, adjustment accounts. Extremely important because there will always be some minuscule transactions with the employees routing through employees' accounts. What is it? Are they taking GST credit on those transactions? Sometimes the purchases or the bills are, the expenditures are incurred through employees. The bill is also in the name of employee. Businesses are not able to take input tax credit. Then we can recommend clients to take bills directly in the name of company. So what is the value or the volume of such transactions? Again, that we will come to know by reviewing the current liabilities. Reimbursements, if any, which are not in the nature of pure agent, they need to be knocked off in the balance sheet items. But then reimbursement, if it is in the nature of pure agent, then on that GST is not applicable. Next, we can also look at TDS, especially TDS under section 195 to evaluate what are the foreign currency transactions, because on foreign currency transactions, there will be GST liability under reverse charge mechanism. Of course, we need to also look at the place of supply and other provisions over there. So there is one question that has come in the chat box, a couple of questions rather, but there is difference in GST or GST 3B because of advance received. So that is what, if the difference is because of advance received, then such justification needs to be given to the officer. Basis the justification, officer may allow the difference. Next question is guarantee commission is as per Ind AS. What for non-Ind AS companies have such personal guarantees by director as recognition isn't applicable to non-Ind AS entity. Now, see, this is only for the accounting standard purpose. But guarantee commission, whether you recognize, not recognize, that is for your accounting purpose under Ind AS. What I'm trying to say is that as a matter of commercial practice, directors do give guarantee, shareholders do give guarantee. They may charge commission, they may not charge commission. But if they are not charging commission, then it is a deemed supply which is liable for GST. Whether or not it is recognized in the Ind AS is a different parameter. So that is something to be looked at separately. Now, this is on current liabilities. Now look at duties and taxes. There is always a ledger with the name duties and taxes. What is that we need to verify in that ledger? First and fundamental, matching GST accounting records. CGST must match with SGST. It's a no-brainer. If it doesn't match, then it's there is something that has gone wrong in the accounting entry. Reconciliation of the books with the electronic credit ledger, be it availing the credit, utilization of the credit, or the credit closing balances. Reconciliation of the books, current assets, input tax credit with the electronic credit ledger is extremely important. Let me tell you, I have seen cases where incorrect accounting entries were passed, backdated entries were passed, entries were missed to be passed, and this has come out only once the reconciliation was done with the electronic credit ledgers. So this is very, very important thing which an organization needs to do on a month-on-month basis. There is a client which that client doesn't file the return unless this reconciliation is done. So there has to be some hard, compliance checkpoint here, because if your books is showing input tax credit balance of 4 crores and on the electronic credit ledger the balance is only 3 crores, it means there is something wrong with your books. Correct? Auditors or as a statutory auditor, you need to eventually take the data from the electronic credit ledger and not from the books of accounts. And if there is any difference over there, it is going to be a very big problem. So if the credit availing entries, utilization entries, and balances are not matching with what is coming in the electronic credit ledger, the cloud balances, then this is a gray area. And let me tell you, if there is a difference, the only way to resolve this difference is to start right from 1718. Because you can't reconcile this from the middle. You have to start right from scratch. There have been cases where we have taken separate projects from the client for doing only this reconciliation activity for last 5 years or 4 years. And in some cases, we could find about 50 lakhs, 60 lakhs, 80 lakhs of credit being missed. And this has rooted or this has come out only in the process of this reconciliation. So extremely important activity that a business needs to do if they have not done, if there's a difference and if there's a mismatch. Accounting of RCM entries. Now, this is again a very big issue. I see that, reverse charge entries are passed on a lump sum basis. Instead of passing the reverse charge entry at a transactional level, the entry is passed at a lump sum basis. Month में एक entry pass होता है RCM liability payable, RCM ITC available. I'm sorry. And उसका पूरा backup calculation Excel sheet में होता है. And when the department comes for the audit after 3 years, nobody has got that Excel sheet. And that Excel sheet is not matching with what is filed in the GST returns, or the accountant who has made that Excel sheet has now left. And then we are running. So if there is no proper accounting system of passing the entries of taxation, then it can lead to a very big problem. There are unnecessary tax codes, redundant tax codes that needs to be removed, blocked. Entry for advance received. Same, when you have received advance, you need to pay GST. So immediately at the entry level itself, you need to pass the accounting entries. Otherwise, it can lead to problems. Accumulation of credit, that to particular type of credit. Now, this is very interesting. Please pay attention. कभी-कभी क्या होता है, कुछ clients के case में, we see that there is an accumulation of particular type of credit. SGST is continuously accumulating, CGST is continuously liquidating. ये ऐसा क्यों होता है? It happens because government has given a mechanism of utilization. पहले पूरा IGST utilize होगा, उसके बाद CGST होगा, उसके बाद SGST होगा. Now they have amended where they have told that once you utilize IGST, then you can equally utilize CGST and SGST. But many people are not aware about this amendment. Let me tell you. अभी भी काफी लोगों को लगता है कि पहले IGST करना है, फिर CGST करना है, फिर SGST करना है. अब वैसे नहीं है. एक बार IGST यूटिलाइज हो गया, उसके बाद आप CGST, SGST अपने प्रपोर्शन में कर सकते हो. तो you can actually liquidate SGST portion. Businesses are having SGST in liability में balance है और इधर CGST में cash में भर रहे हैं. Why are you doing that? Very, very important. Sometimes you need to hold certain credits. कुछ time के लिए credit मत लो 3B में. Don't take the credit in 3B for some time, so that you liquidate the SGST, and as and when the SGST is liquidated, then you claim the credit in 3B and utilize through IGST. The reason, आप अगर every month on month credit लोगे, तो every time IGST will get a preference over SGST. So ऐसी कुछ planning करनी होती है कभी-कभी to extract or to balance out the accumulation of one type of credit. Extremely important. Duties and taxes ledger से हमको एक और चीज पता चलती है. What is the status of refund claim? आपने especially for exporters and businesses into inverted rate structure, आपने कितने refund application file किए, कितनों का refund आ गया, कितनों का refund process में है, कितनों का refund जो नहीं आया, whether it has been again credited back to the electronic credit ledger, and or whether it has been rejected. What is the status? Businesses don't have the status. There was a client where the refund was rejected and the amount was to be credited back to the electronic credit ledger. और वो ऑफिसर ने आज तक, it's been now 8 to 9 months, officer has not credited the amount back to electronic credit ledger, and nobody in the organization is aware कि वो पैसा पेंडिंग है आना. तो ये जब तक हम ड्यूटीज एंड टैक्सेस लेडजर में प्रॉपर एंट्रीज पास नहीं करेंगे, that this is the GST tax pending with the department, and if these calculations are lying in Excel sheet, then sorry, this problem will always be there, and that junior person who is maintaining the GST records will have that Excel sheet. उसके ऊपर किसी के पास ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में वो Excel sheet नहीं होता है. Nobody knows कि 5 लाख 7 लाख 10 लाख रुपया आना है GST डिपार्टमेंट से. This is the state of affairs I have seen even in the large organizations. Key ratios हमको देखने होते हैं, especially from the vendors side. What are the total non-compliant vendors to the total vendors? What is the total liability paid in cash vis-a-vis total liability? What is the tax liability divided by turnover? What is the total tax divided by total? ये रेशियो से आपको एक मोटा-मोटी कैलकुलेशन पता चलता है ना कि भाई इनके बिजनेस में कैश लायबिलिटी तो आनी चाहिए because they are doing profits. If there is no cash liability in a particular business, then what is the reason? Is it because of huge capex? Is it because the business is in loss? Is it because the rate of GST on the sale is lesser than the rate of GST on the purchase? So we need to apply these key ratios to look at, where is the organization standing? What are the total non-compliant vendors vis-a-vis total vendors? And is this something significant amount or significant number that the management must be aware? So we need to apply these ratios to just get some food for thought from GST compliance perspective. And coming to assets side, fixed assets. Firstly, we need to review the fixed assets registers with the entries that are passed in the financials. Extremely important, because if you have capitalized something or not capitalized something, that could have an implication on the GST as well. Now, as far as fixed assets is concerned, now let us first take motor vehicles. So motor vehicles, input tax credit is not allowed, we are all aware. But in case of dealerships, dealer business, when the motor vehicle is purchased for demo, let me tell you, it is used in the course or furtherance of the sale of motor vehicle, and hence input tax credit should be allowed. There is already a favorable advance ruling in this regard. Leasing, repair, and insurance of motor vehicle, even for that, the credit is not allowed. What is really important is the sale of motor vehicle. When the motor vehicle is sold, you have not taken the input tax credit at the time of purchase of motor vehicle. तो जब आप गाड़ी बेचोगे तो उस टाइम पर GST is payable on a differential value only, and that differential value has to be computed considering the depreciated value. Depreciated value has to be on the basis of income tax and not on the basis of Companies Act. Many times I see businesses calculating on the basis of Companies Act, which is not correct. You can actually have the same depreciation for both income tax and Companies Act. Why do you want to have complications? Now, even there is no restriction under the Companies Act. So that is one very, very important aspect. And depreciation has to be calculated under income tax. Sometimes I see businesses paying on the sale of motor vehicle, full 28% GST on the sale value or on the difference value. Let me tell you, the rate of GST for second-hand vehicles is not 28%; it is 18% or 12%, depending upon the the power of the vehicle based on the CC, whether it's 1200 cc or 1500 cc. So, and it's not 28%. I've seen businesses paying 28% plus cess. It is wrong. Similarly, when any asset is sold, जब कोई asset बेचते हैं, तो GST is not payable on the full value of sale. It is payable only on the depreciated value. And depreciation का benefit मिलता है GST के अंदर भी. So when we are selling an asset, we need to calculate GST on the depreciated value. And if the depreciated value is less than the actual sale value, then GST is payable only on the depreciated value, not on the actual sale value. If depreciated value is more than the actual sale value, then GST is payable on the higher value, which is the depreciated value. वहां पर सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम आती है, बिकॉज बिजनेसेस डोंट कलेक्ट जीएसटी फ्रॉम द कस्टमर। यानी डिप्रिशिएटेड वैल्यू 100 रुपया है, लेकिन आपने बेचा 80 रुपया में, आपने इनवॉइस भी रेज किया 80 रुपया, एंड 80 रुपीज पे आपने जीएसटी कलेक्ट किया है। ऑन द अदर हैंड, यू आर पेइंग लायबिलिटी टू और टैक्स टू द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ 100 रुपीज. So that 20 rupees, 18% of that 20 rupees becomes a cost to the company. That is where we must become vigilant. When we are removing the assets from one company to other company, from one branch to other branch, from one head office to other branch, or from branch to head office, in all these cases, there is an implication of GST, there is an implication of e-way bill to be generated, and all the other procedural requirements. Are we checking these aspects? ये कैसे चेक करें, इसका कैसे पता चलेगा? Because income में तो आता नहीं, revenue में तो आता नहीं है. You need to have a mechanism. I'll tell you one very important issue for one of our client. When we ask them कि सर आपका कोई branch transfer होता है? नहीं, हमारा तो कोई branch transfer होता नहीं है. तो और अगर होता है तो हम उस पे जीएसटी भर देते हैं, तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं. चलो ठीक है, बिकॉज वो चीज अलग से इनकम स्टेटमेंट में आती नहीं है. Then we actually went and saw their e-way bill records. तो जब e-way bill के records देखे, तो there were so many transactions जहां पर e-way bill generate हुआ था, because there was a movement of material from head office to the branch. और फिर वो records हमने निकालकर जीएसटी record से मैच किया, पता चला उसमें तो जीएसटी भरा ही नहीं. And then we found out that there were so many times the material moved, but there was no GST paid on the branch transfer. So let me tell you, this is extremely important check, because department ये देखने वाला है. Are we ready with departmental audit? So this is, and similarly in case of assets, we all know that input tax credit is available for plant, machinery, furniture, fixture, electrical equipment, computers. For the construction aspect, the input tax credit is not available. But then what is very important is that what is the meaning of the term construction? काफी बार हमको लगता है कि भाई बिल्डिंग बनी है तो उस पे जो भी कंस्ट्रक्शन एक्टिविटी है पूरे अमाउंट पे क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा. I'm sorry, that is a wrong understanding. We need to understand that whenever there is a development taking place, there are multiple things that happen. First and foremost is excavation. Sorry, before that, design, planning, drawings, architectural support, consultancy, excavation, earthwork, site leveling, plinth. Then comes construction. And after construction, completion and finishing works, painting, denting, waterproofing, glazing, tiling, plaster of Paris, fittings, equipments, and all other electricals, all these things come. So input tax credit is not available only and only on the construction element, but the credit is available on erection, installations, commissioning, fixtures, fittings, completions. Are we really looking into it? Because in this case, the stakes are going to be very high. Amounts बहुत बड़ी होती है. So are we really assessing these transactions and checking for the client के कितना आप actually credit ले सकते हो, rather than booking everything as a cost? Especially if you look at this Pune, Pimpri Chinchwad or Chakan side, you will find nowadays, because of change in technology, you will find pre-engineered buildings. Now, pre-engineered buildings typically can be moved by nuts and bolts. It is completely a structure built on nuts and bolts, and it is easily movable. The question that comes is whether it is an immovable property and whether the input tax credit is eligible for pre-engineered buildings. It's a very important aspect. Or if businesses don't want to take risk over there, they can always have an option of availing the credit and not utilizing the same. Excise में हम करते थे ये चीज. Excise में businesses used to do this. So what's harm in availing the credit and not utilizing it? As and when there is a Supreme Court decision, utilize it. The matter is already pending before Supreme Court in the case of Safari retreats, I think yesterday there was supposed to be a hearing, but I think continuously it's being extended. These are the aspects that needs to be looked at as far as fixed assets is concerned. Similarly, sale of fixed assets. So if the fixed assets are sold, whether GST is being paid or not paid on the depreciated value and all that. Next, very, very important aspect is a reclassification of capitalization. कभी-कभी क्या होता है कि ओरिजिनली आपने एसेट को CWIP में डाला, आपने कैपिटलाइज किया बिल्डिंग में और उसका क्रेडिट नहीं लिया, but later it was actually charged to expenses, or later it was moved from building account CWIP to, let's say, plant and machinery because of difference of opinion with the auditors or whatever, but very much possible. But if this thing happens, whether we are again changing what we have done for GST earlier, I have hardly seen business doing that. And originally आपने credit नहीं लिया था because it was going in CWIP building, but later it was capitalized to a different account, or later it was expensed. Did we again take back the input tax credit which was earlier reversed, or vice versa? All these things are going to be extremely important questions that needs to be answered during the review of fixed assets. Next is verification of inventory records. When we are verifying the inventory records, obviously we need to see what are the goods lost, stolen, destroyed, written off, or removed as samples, gifts, destruction, abandonment, damaged. So in all these cases, many times businesses are reversing the input tax credit on as is where is basis. हमको लगता है कि अगर कोई इन्वेंट्री का राइट ऑफ हुआ है तो उसके साथ में इमीडिएटली जीएसटी भी रिवर्स करना पड़ेगा. आई एम सॉरी, आई हैव अ डिफरेंट ओपिनियन ओवर देयर. Section 17 subsection 5 is blocking of input tax credit. It is not reversal of input tax credit. And blocking of input tax credit has to be seen at the time of availing input tax credit. We cannot see the blocking of input tax credit at a subsequent event. When I have availed the credit, whether the goods were in the good position, if the answer is yes, you can claim the credit. When I avail the credit, the goods were in a damaged position, you cannot claim the credit. But once I avail the credit, and later if the goods are lost, stolen, destroyed, there is no question of reversal of credit, because reversal is given under section 17 subsection 2 and 17 subsection 3 and section 17 subsection 1, but it is not coming in 17 subsection 5. This is extremely important. One. Second, even if let's say the reversal comes in, it is only and only for the inputs or the raw materials. It cannot be there for the semi-finished goods and the finished goods, because we don't know what is the quantity that has gone into it. And the reversal is for the ITC taken on the goods. Now here it has already converted into semi-finished goods or the finished goods. How do you calculate the reversal? So there is no question of reversal coming in once the goods have changed its form into semi-finished goods or finished goods. Very, very important aspect. Next, very, very important aspect is the movement of inventory through job work. When we are doing inventory verification, we need to understand what is the inventory lying with the job worker. हमने job worker को कितना दिया है और हमको as a job work किसने दिया है. And if the inventory is not coming back within 1 year, अगर within 1 year नहीं आता है, then there is a question of reversal of ITC. Let me tell you, आज की date में even the largest of the manufacturing companies I am seeing, they do not have the proper records to maintain for this job work movement. As a statutory auditor, as a person assisting client in closure of books of accounts, if there is no records available on this account, tomorrow there can be a very big GST liability coming in. There was a client जिसके पास ये कोई records थे नहीं, but किसी ने आके बोल दिया कि ITC 04 every quarterly file करना होता है, और मैनेजमेंट से काफी प्रेशर आ रहा था कि अरे यार वो ITC 04 फाइल कर दो, इट्स अ कंप्लायंस इशू, नहीं तो प्रॉब्लम आएगा। अब वो बेचारे अकाउंटेंट के पास रिकॉर्ड्स तो थे नहीं, तो कैसे फाइल करेगा। उसने क्या किया, जो उसको समझा, जो मोटा मोटी रिकॉर्ड्स थे वो लेकर उसने ITC 04 फाइल कर दिया। नाउ इट हैज लेड टू अ बिगर प्रॉब्लम because when I review that ITC 04, now it is very clear that there are goods that are going which has not come back within 1 year. Now there is a very clear liability coming in, which is also submitted by your own accountant in the ITC 04. Many companies, they don't have the mechanism of review of ITC 04. GSTR 1 review हो जाता है, GSTR 3 भी review हो जाता है, but ITC 04 review नहीं होता है. Are we reviewing that in the year-end activity or a closure? Ideally, it has to be quarterly review. I think now it is half yearly. अभी ITC 04 को half yearly कर दिया. Inventory की movement. Let me tell you, GST is not a tax on sale. GST is a tax on supply. And when I say supply, supply includes transfer. And when I say transfer, any transfer or any movement of inventory outside the state is also liable to GST. Or any disposal of inventory, permanent transfer or disposal of inventory is also liable to GST. Which means we need to go beyond sales register. अगर हम सोचते हैं कि GST में मेरी सेल्स की ट्रांजैक्शंस हमने देख ली, अदर इनकम्स हमने देख लिया, तो रेवेन्यू साइड पूरा कवर हो गया है, देन आई एम सॉरी. वी नीड टू एक्चुअली चेक the entire inventory register, because GST is not a liability on sale. GST is a liability on supply, which includes transfer. So what is the movement of inventory? I've given you one example. We can verify that through e-way bill records. We can verify that through inventory records. And we can also verify that through SAP में बहुत बार क्या होता है ना, when you extract the sales register, तो उसमें there is a particular type of transaction. When you select that document type, you get all these transactions where there is FOC movement of goods. And all this FOC movement of goods, there can be a GST implication. Are we verifying that? Is a very important question. Next very, very important aspect is trade receivables and debtors. तो customer का advance कितना क्या आया, उस पे GST liability. Whether डेटार्स को हमको रिव्यू करने से हमको एक चीज पता चलती है, वेदर देयर इज अ डिले इन रेजिंग ऑफ इनवॉइस. बहुत बार क्या होता है, हम प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस में रेवेन्यू आइटम्स देख लेते हैं, आपको लगता है फिर से डेटार्स क्यों देखना, ऑलरेडी रेवेन्यू तो कवर हो गया. बट लेट मी टेल यू, व्हेन यू रिव्यू कस्टमर वाइज, जब आप कस्टमर वाइज देखते हो तो एक अलग पिक्चर सामने आती है पूरी. आपको पता चलता है अरे ये कस्टमर में तो मंथली एक बिल रेज हो रहा है, तो फिर सडनली 3 महीना बिल रेज क्यों नहीं हुआ, suddenly चौथे महीने 3 बिल एक साथ रेस किया. It means there's a delay in invoicing. It means the interest is applicable. Oh, there is a, ये कस्टमर के केस में एक ही चीज की 4 बिल हो रहे हैं. Is it a composite supply जिसको आर्टिफिशियली उन्होंने बाइफरकेट किया है, और ये कस्टमर के केस में एक ही बिल रेस हो रहा है, हालांकि अलग अलग सर्विस जारी है. तो is it a इंडिविजुअल सप्लाई जिसको आर्टिफिशियली क्लब किया गया है to avoid the GST rate. And then you should always look at the large customers. Who are the large customers? और वो कस्टमर के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स देखो, वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट स्टडी करो कि भाई वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में क्या लिखा है, व्हाट इज द नेचर ऑफ एक्टिविटी अंडरटेकन. भले वो जो एक्टिविटी कर रहे हैं वो HSN कोड बराबर लिया क्या, उसका रेट बराबर लिया क्या. There are multiple activities happening, but why they are selecting the HSN code of this activity while there is another activity also which is happening. तो कंपोजिट सप्लाई और मिक्स सप्लाई के काफी सारे इश्यूज आपको पता चलेंगे व्हेन यू डू इट कस्टमर वाइज रिव्यू. और उससे एक और होता है कि मटेरियलिटी एंगल में कवर होता है, आपको पता चलता है कौन मेजर कस्टमर्स है, एंड व्हाट आर द GST इंप्लीकेशंस ऑन दैट. डेटा सेजिंग रिपोर्ट देखनी होती है. डेटा सेजिंग रिपोर्ट से पता चलता है हाउ मच GST इज गेटिंग ब्लॉक्ड ऑन अकाउंट ऑफ डेटार्स. अगर ये पैसा नहीं आने वाला है तो क्रेडिट नोट रेस करना है क्या, इज देयर अ डेफिशिएंसी, कोई लिटिगेशन चल रहा है क्या, can we save on the taxation portion at least by raising a credit note. So all these things we need to look at by looking at the debtors aging report. Similarly, एक बार हमने वेंडर्स के केस में देखा था, वेंडर्स एजिंग रिपोर्ट भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होता है. हमने एक क्लाइंट के केस में देखा कि वेंडर्स एजिंग रिपोर्ट में इतने बड़े बड़े एजिंग दिख रहे हैं. Then we asked the client why these amounts are coming as an aging. Then he told that these are on account of two-way debits that have been made, which are never going to be recovered. So which means as a business you have taken a cost of this entire amount, which would either reflect in the vendor's aging as a credit item or in the debtor's aging as a debit item. So we need to review the customer masters to see what are the master records. Then current assets में associated enterprises, group companies के साथ जो investment transactions जो सब होते हैं उसकी details रहती है, especially the investments heading. Under investment headings, you come to know all these transactions which may or may not have GST implication. If it is mere investment, there is no GST implication. But if there is something more to it, then certainly we need to look at GST angle. Short-term advances and other current assets. Obviously, again, we need to see what are the GST implication on this by looking at the other receivables. No ITC would be available unless the goods or services are received, because merely on receipt of advance or payment of advance, the credit cannot be claimed. Then the key ratios to be looked at: what is ITC availed vis-a-vis ITC utilized? What is ITC availed vis-a-vis total ITC? What is total ITC vis-a-vis two-way matching ITC? So these are the reconciliation or ratios that will give you some food for thought as to where you need to go deeper. So this is as far as current assets are concerned. There can be many more aspects, but I'm touching upon few things. I'm just trying to give the flavor of what to be checked. There's a question which is from one question is Sangeeta, 180 days non-payment ITC reversal. What is to do for 17-18 till now officer takes out this point? 17-18 में reversal करने की जरूरत नहीं है. The law was different. We are taking a very clear stand. No reversal for 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, 20-21, 21-22, and 22-23 up to September. Correct? At the time of reversal, penalty will also arise. Sorry, no penalty. Interest can come if you have utilized the ITC, but then when there is no reversal, there is no question of interest. What if branch is within the state, there is no tax? Plant and machinery move from one company to another in the group of companies. GST will put on WDV as per IT Act or some other WDV as per IT Act. In case of FG is destroyed by fire and sold as plastic MS scrap, what treatment has to be given for ITC? ITC you can claim. I've already told you. Whether GST is payable on year-end provision and done by customer, no GST on provision. GST is a tax on supply of goods or services, not on provision. So now let's move on for some aspects relating to the income items. Now again, I think कुछ चीजें मैंने already covered कर लिए वहाँ पर, which I will skip if it is already covered. As far as income is concerned, I've told you, okay, our duty is not just to do the reconciliation. कि GSTR1 को GSTR3B से मैच कर लिया, उसको सेल्स रजिस्टर से मैच कर लिया और काम हो गया, चलो अभी 990 फाइल करो. Sorry. We need to first see whether the transaction is taxable in the first place, whether there is a levy of tax, whether the transaction is in the course or furtherance of business. Even today, there is a debate in case of trusts, in case of charitable institutions, in case of this donations and all other transactions. Whether it is in the course or furtherance of business, even today it is a debate, and whether GST is applicable on the same. FOC removals, again, we need to ask whether there is a supply, whether there is a consideration. If there is no consideration, then whether we can say it is a supply. Incentives, काफी कंपनी को गवर्नमेंट से सब्सिडीज मिलती हैं, incentives मिलते हैं. What do you say this? Some sort of benefits are given by the government for as a PLI or road tab or some sort of subsidy. तो ये subsidies पे GST आना चाहिए क्या? नहीं आएगा, because there is no consideration. There is no quid pro quo in this particular thing. It cannot be called as supply. There's no question of GST coming in. Actionable claims, insurance claims, lottery prize money. These are the transactions which cannot be liable to GST. अभी एक बहुत बड़ा issue आया है employee recoveries. I think now there is a circular clarifying. Companies do some recovery from employees on account of uniform, internet, mobile, telephone, canteen, travel. And on this, GST is not applicable because it is not. It is not a supply because it is in the course of employer and employee transactions in the course of employment. So GST is not applicable. It is no supply. It is not taxable. Expat payments, foreign expats who the payment karte hain, who are on the rolls, there cannot be a GST liability. Of course, there is a Supreme Court judgment on that GST would be applicable. But then that Supreme Court judgment was in service tax. And that particular judgment was for those specific facts. And those facts cannot be equated in general. So we need to look at it from case to case basis on a taxability front. पहली बात तो ये देखना कि भाई taxability है क्या transaction में? Dividends पे GST नहीं लगता है. Interest is exempt from GST. Now when it comes to exemptions, जो items पर client exemption ले रहा है, we should be double sure. Exemption has to be done strict interpretation, and once we have done strict interpretation, then purposeful play can be done. But the question that comes is, jahan bhi client exemption le raha hai, our checking has to be doubly sure that whether that exemption is proper, whether this exemption can be denied, what is the authenticity of this exemption, what is the risk if this exemption is denied in future. So we need to verify all these things. We have to go to notification number 2, notification number 14, notification number 12. Composite mix supply, ये सबसे important चीज है. I think this is something we miss. कि बिल्कुल जब transaction हो रहा है, तो client के पास जाकर हमको समझना चाहिए कि transaction क्या है. इसको composite mix supply बोल सकते हैं क्या? Whether it is a composite supply, whether it is a mix supply, whether it's separate supplies. I'll give you an example. अभी जैसे EPC contracts होते हैं. EPC contracts में you need to do, it's a turnkey basis. आपको पूरा fitting करना है, material देना है, services देना है, inspection, commissioning, installation, फिर और जो कस्टमर पूछता है अलग अलग चीजें सब देना है आपको. तो इसको क्या बोलोगे आप? Whether it is a supply of goods or a supply of service, or it's a composite supply or mixed supply. नहीं सर, तो mixed supply है तो क्या highest PSC rate भरोगे? 18% भरोगे? 28% भरोगे? Your competitor will kill you. नहीं सर, ये तो works contract है. अरे works contract कैसे होगा? It is not an immovable property. It is a movable property. Then how it is a works contract? Then we need to identify whether there is a separate service accounting code for this transaction. Yes, there is a separate service accounting code called EPC contracts, engineering, procurement, design. So can we classify over there? Yes. So these are the things that we need to look at. काफी बार ऐसा होता है कि 1+1 schemes are there और 2+1 schemes are there. तो क्या आप इसको FOC बोलोगे कि ये तो फ्री में दे रहा है तो चलो इसका ITC रिवर्स करो? सॉरी, दिस इज अ सेल्स प्रमोशन. सेल्स प्रमोशन का ITC पूरा मिलता है. देयर इज नो क्वेश्चन ऑफ रिवर्सल ऑफ क्रेडिट. सो कंपोजिट सप्लाई, मिक्स सप्लाई आपको जब तक समझ में नहीं आएगा, जब तक आप क्लाइंट प्लेस पर जाकर क्लाइंट के बिजनेस को नहीं समझोगे, क्लाइंट से इंटरैक्ट नहीं करोगे, उनका बिजनेस मॉडल नहीं समझोगे, उनका मैन्युफैक्चरिंग प्रोसेस नहीं समझोगे, उनका सर्विस डिलीवरी कंसेप्ट नहीं समझोगे, उनके एग्रीमेंट्स नहीं पढ़ोगे कस्टमर के, you will never will be able to understand the business, you will never will be able to give the cutting edge GST advice, and you will never be able to understand the aspect of composite mix. In all our clients where we do the initial reviews to make a plant visit, ठीक है, कभी कभी समझने वाली बात है कि भाई कुछ छोटे क्लाइंट है तो सर इतना टाइम कहाँ से दे, बट देन आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट ए कैटेगरी क्लाइंट्स, लार्ज क्लाइंट्स और बिगर क्लाइंट्स, और द स्टेक्स आर हाई, जहाँ कॉम्प्लिकेशंस थोड़े ज्यादा है बिजनेस में, या फिर जहाँ पर द बिजनेस इज लिटिल यूनिक, देयर एटलीस्ट वी हैव टू स्पेंड टाइम ऑन दीज एक्टिविटीज। क्लासिफिकेशन, और ये बहुत सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है कि कोई क्लासिफिकेशन चेक ही नहीं करना चाहता। एंड लेट मी टेल यू, दिस इज अ प्रॉब्लम इवन इन माय ऑफिस। आई हैव टू लिटरली पुश माय टीम वेरी हार्ड कि भाई क्लासिफिकेशन में मतलब ये नहीं है कि सिर्फ रेट ऑफ टैक्स देख लिया, सर HSN 8428 18% है, वो मैंने चेक कर लिया। सॉरी, HSN 8428 बराबर है क्या, वो चेक करो। सर वो कैसे देखे? यू नीड टू लुक एट द CBIC, आपको कस्टम्स टैरिफ देखना होता है, आपको एक्सप्लेनेटरी नोट्स पढ़ना पड़ेगा। Very unfortunate that people use Google and WhatsApp. I see a message coming every day on some or other WhatsApp group. What is the HSN code of pen? What is the HSN code of sharpener? What is the HSN code of telephone? What is? आप क्या कर रहे हो? आप WhatsApp पर आंसर पूछ रहे हो HSN code? You are asking your HSN code on Google? I'm sorry, I'll tell you what, you may end up with a wrong HSN code for the client. HSN कोड वेरिफिकेशन एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट। मैं आपको बताऊं, HSN कोड की सबसे बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंस आती है कस्टम्स में। कस्टम्स में अगर आपने एक भी HSN कोड गलत ले लिया तो आपकी कस्टम ड्यूटी का रेट गलत होता है। आपकी कस्टम ड्यूटी का अगर रेट गलत है तो यू मे एंड अप पेइंग हायर कस्टम ड्यूटी और अ लोअर कस्टम ड्यूटी। बोथ ऑफ देम कैन बी अ प्रॉब्लम। सो अभी आपको एक सबसे बड़ा एग्जांपल आई कैन टेल यू, ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री Pune में automobile industry, especially the part component manufacturers, are already facing the problem of HSN code classification, right from your fasteners to polymer products to your engine products to your all other I would say acoustic products of the car. Each and every product is undergoing scrutiny of the department. We have represented right at the North Block 3 times on the issue, but अभी तक उसका कोई क्लैरिफिकेशन हुआ नहीं है। एंड आई टेल यू सबसे बड़ा इशू क्या होता है क्लासिफिकेशन के केस में। क्लासिफिकेशन में अगर एक भी गलती हो गई, देन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट 5% और 10% ऑफ द ग्रॉस। 18% 28% का 18% लगा दिया तो आपको 10% देना है ग्रॉस का। ग्रॉस का 10% इज अ वेरी बिग अमाउंट। उतना तो बिजनेस का मार्जिन भी नहीं होता है। We need to be doubly sure. We cannot check on Google. We cannot check on WhatsApp. Classification of services, restaurant service versus supply of goods service अपने आप में एक बहुत बड़ा इशू है। Warehousing service versus transportation service versus 3PL supply management service, which is the right HSN code, is a very big issue. Reason being, वेयरहाउसिंग का रेट है 18%, ट्रांसपोर्ट का रेट है 12% और 3PL सप्लाई चेन का रेट है 18%। अगर इसमें कुछ भी गलत हो गया, देन यू कैन हैव एन इशू विद द रेट ऑफ टैक्स। Classification of service and classification of goods is very, very important. Classifying whether it is a goods or service is itself in a different issue. Next, time of supply. बोलो रेवेन्यू में आपको क्या क्या देखना चाहिए, मैं बता रहा हूँ आपको। रेवेन्यू में आपको देखना चाहिए भाई टैक्सेबल है क्या, एग्जाम्प्ट है तो किस नोटिफिकेशन में एग्जाम्प्ट है, कंपोजिट मिक्स सप्लाई में कहाँ बैठ रहा है, क्लासिफिकेशन क्या है, रेट ऑफ टैक्स क्या है, टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई क्या है, इस पे GST कब लगेगा, आज लगेगा कि बाद में लगेगा, इनवॉइस कब रेज हो रहा है, इनवॉइस बराबर रेज हो रहा है क्या। इनवॉइस सर्विस जैसी कंप्लीट होती है इमीडिएटली इनवॉइस रेज करना है, बट देन सर्विस कंप्लीट हुई उसके 4 महीने बाद आप इनवॉइस रेज कर रहे हो। दिस इज अ वेरी कॉमन इशू इन द ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री। ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री में सर्विस जैसे कंप्लीट होने उसके 3 या 4 महीने बाद इनवॉइस रेज होता है, बिकॉज ऑफ प्रूफ ऑफ डिलीवरी आना बहुत जरूरी होता है। और कभी कभी प्रूफ ऑफ डिलीवरी आते आते 1-1.5-2 महीना लग जाता है, बिकॉज देयर आर सो मेनी ऑपरेशन हैजल्स। तो tomorrow can department say that there is a delay in raising invoice and I will charge you interest? तो आपको देखना है कि भाई जैसे ही सर्विस कंप्लीट हुई इमीडिएट 30 डेज में इनवॉइस रेज हो रहा है क्या, वेदर देयर इज अ सिस्टम in place. That is extremely important. और ये सबसे बड़ा इशू आता है EPC कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स में। EPC कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स में क्या होता है कि आरए बिल जैसे आता है, वो आरए बिल देखा तो काम तो हो गया पूरा, तो लेकिन फिर भी इनवॉइस रेज नहीं होता है बिकॉज गवर्नमेंट से पेमेंट आते आते 3 महीने 4 महीने 6 महीने साल भर भी लग जाता है। तो इनका कोऑर्डिनेशन चालू रहता है। जिस दिन गवर्नमेंट बोलता है चलो ये मंथ में मैं इनवॉइस रेज का पेमेंट देने वाला हूँ, तो वो मंथ में इनवॉइस रेज होता है। बट देन सर्विस इज ऑलरेडी कंप्लीटेड 6 months बैक। टुमारो वेदर गवर्नमेंट विल से कि भाई आपने इनवॉइस डिले रेज किया तो पे इंटरेस्ट, whether your agreement is supporting by for the delay in invoice. These are all very important things that we need to verify. जब तक हम agreements नहीं देखेंगे हमको नहीं समझ में। Place of supply is the heart of GST. मैं इस पर बहुत ज्यादा नहीं बोलूँगा, बस place of supply अपने आप में एक सेक्शन है। Be it for domestic transactions, be it for cross-border transactions. Place of supply अगर हमने गलत कर दिया, it means we are paying taxes where it is not required to be paid, or we are not paying taxes where it is required to pay. Intermediary is a classic example जहाँ पर there is a litigation going on. Bombay High Court का split judgment है whether on intermediary transactions is applicable or not applicable. Similarly, job work transactions में there are a lot of issues here. Trainings and events, there is an issue over there. Performance based services में there is an issue. And सबसे बड़ा issue है online information database access retrieval services में digital taxation. गवर्नमेंट इज सेइंग कि कोई भी बंदा बाहर का अगर इंडिया में डिजिटल सर्विस देता है तो उसको इंडिया में जीएसटी का नंबर लेके कंप्लायंस करना है. हाउ मेनी आर डूइंग इट इज माय क्वेश्चन. एंड द बिगेस्ट इशू इन प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई इज डबल टैक्सेशन. many countries are taxing the assessee for a transaction both in their own country and in the supplier's country as well as the recipient's country. Income tax में there are double taxation avoidance agreements. Unfortunately, indirect tax में ऐसा कोई concept ही नहीं है. तो ये concept नहीं है, इसका हर country फायदा उठा रही है. तो इंडिया क्या करेगा? Supplier, you are supplier, there is some nexus with India, let's pay GST. यूरोप बोलेगा customer is in Europe, there is some nexus with VAT, let's pay VAT. So there is a double taxation which is happening, and that is where we need to suggest client whether we need to go for it, whether we need to challenge these things. But then I'll not go, but then you need to see place of supply. मेरा point ये है, अब उसमें मैं डिटेल में बहुत डिटेल में नहीं जा सकता. Type of tax, whether it is a CGST, SGST or IGST, whether it is properly going. That is again very important aspect. Valuation देखना होता है रेवेन्यू में. मैंने रिलेटेड पार्टी के बारे में आपको ऑलरेडी बताया. डिस्काउंट अगर है तो whether there is a proper documentation for the discount given, because discount में आप वैल्यू कम कर रहे हो, आप GST कम कर रहे हो. So you need to back it up with the document. If you don't have documentation on the agreement in place, tomorrow government can question. Joint development agreements में valuation का बहुत बड़ा issue है. When there is a supply happening, multiple things happening, but there is no charge, तो वहां पर फिर इशू आता है price is not the sole consideration. ये आपको जब एग्रीमेंट पढ़ोगे तब आपको पता चलता है कि भाई ऐसा कुछ इशू है क्या जहां पर price is not the sole consideration. जहां पर there is something more that the customer is giving beyond the consideration. So then there can be a GST implication under section 15 subsection 1. तो ये सभी चीजों को हमको देखना पड़ेगा. वैल्यूएशन में कुछ प्रॉब्लम है क्या, फिर हमको देखना पड़ेगा कि डेबिट नोट क्रेडिट नोट्स कुछ रेज हुए हैं. तो डेबिट नोट्स में whether interest is applicable is very important, because आज मैंने इनवॉइस रेज किया, उसका डेबिट नोट मैंने 3 महीने बाद रेज किया, तो जो बैलेंस अमाउंट है उस पे इंटरेस्ट आएगा क्या? That is a very important question that needs to be looked at. There is a Supreme Court judgment of Steel Authority of India Limited that debit note पे interest आना चाहिए for the price difference. And let me tell you, automobile companies पे price difference is a very common phenomenon. और अगर उस पर इंटरेस्ट अगर भरने को बोला तो इट इज गोइंग टू किल द मार्केट. आज की डेट में सभी कंपनीज प्रोविजन लगा के बैठी है, बट देन जीएसटी लॉ में कैसे उसको रखेंगे वो देखना पड़ेगा. बट हमको आज ही क्लाइंट को बताना कि भाई ऐसा एक इशू है जो चल रहा है सुप्रीम कोर्ट में, विच यू मस्ट बी अवेयर. क्रेडिट नोट्स में देयर इज अ टाइमलाइन फॉर रेजिंग अ क्रेडिट नोट. इफ देयर इज बियॉन्ड द टाइमलाइन देयर कैन बी एन इशू ऑन द एडजस्टमेंट ऑफ द टैक्सेस. Then the rate change in rate of tax 28 से 18 हुआ, 18 से 12 हुआ, तो वो साल में कुछ चेंज हुआ क्या क्लाइंट के केस में, उसका बराबर ट्रीटमेंट हुआ क्या? दैट इज समथिंग वी नीड टू. प्रोसीजरल कंप्लायंसेस, ई इनवॉइसिंग हुआ क्या वो ट्रांजैक्शन के लिए, रेवेन्यू के लिए, ई वे बिल जनरेट हुआ क्या, प्रॉपर डिस्क्लोजर है क्या ई इनवॉइस पे, प्रॉपर डिस्क्लोजर है क्या ई वे बिल के ऊपर, वेदर द जीएसटी रिटर्न्स इट इज प्रॉपरली गोइंग काफी बार मैंने देखा है, सॉरी कभी मैंने देखा है कि जीरो रेटेड सप्लाई को एग्जेम्प्ट में डाल देते हैं, या फिर जीरो रेटेड सप्लाई को B2C में डाल देते हैं, तो देन आपको रिफंड नहीं मिलेगा गवर्नमेंट से। तो लेट मी टेल यू, प्रोसीजर इज एज इंपॉर्टेंट एज लॉ, कंसेप्चुअल लॉ। काफी बार क्लाइंट्स कम टू मी फॉर एन ओपिनियन फॉर अ प्रोसीजर, बोले सर हमको आप ईवीटी का प्रोसीजर बताओ कैसे है। तो you need to look at a transaction, एक रेवेन्यू ट्रांजैक्शन जब हम देख रहे हैं तो उनको ये पूरे पैरामीटर से आपको देखना पड़ेगा, टैक्सेबिलिटी, क्लासिफिकेशन, कंपोजिट मिक्स, रेट, वैल्यूएशन, टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई, प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई, टाइप ऑफ टैक्स, डेबिट नोट्स, क्रेडिट नोट्स, चेंज इन रेट ऑफ टैक्स एंड प्रोसीजर, सभी चीजें देखना। So all these things are important. Then there are some transaction structuring possibilities which are there. I will not go into that right now. We are falling short of time. Interest, अगर किसी पे डिले है तो इंटरेस्ट की कंप्यूटेशंस बराबर है क्या? 9 out of 10 times I have seen इंटरेस्ट की कंप्यूटेशन गलत होती है जो डिपार्टमेंट कैलकुलेट करते हैं। गलत टाइप ऑफ टैक्स चार्ज कर दिया, CGST, SGST, IGST कर दिया और वाइस वर्सा। देयर इज let me see if, and then these are all the reconciliations that you need to do. So what I'm trying to say is reconciliation is only one part. Reconciliation is not the only part in GST. ठीक है ना? ये सभी reconciliations करने होते हैं. I'm not going to the details of these reconciliations. Now let me cover some of the expenditure items. Maybe in about 10-12 minutes I'll cover that, and then expenditure broadly if I put it, we need to look at 3-4 important aspects. Broadly, then there are, in detail there are a lot of things, but broadly, first and foremost thing is analyzing the expenditure ledgers. हमको expenditure की ledgers analyze करना पड़ेगा कि to check whether any ineligible credit has been taken, or whether a credit which was eligible has not been taken, or whether a credit has been taken in a delayed manner. यानी आज आपको मिल सकता था क्रेडिट, आपने 4 महीने बाद लिया, because you don't have a system, it is going to directly impact the working capital or the working cash flow of the company. So these are the various ledgers that you need to verify. I will not go into the details of the ledger, but broadly these are the things that you are trying to verify as far as expenditure is concerned. And let me tell you, you need to have a proper system to check this. Ineligible credit section 17(1) से आता है, section 17(2), 17(3), 17(4), 17(5). Very recently there is an amendment that CSR transactions you cannot claim credit. Anyway, businesses are not claiming even in the past, but now it is amended in the Finance Act itself. Correct? So then coming to ये सभी ledgers आपको देखनी होती है to check whether there is any liability under reverse charge. Expenses में second बहुत important aspect आता है कि whether there is any liability under reverse charge. अभी इसमें सबसे बड़ा important होता है, दो चीजें सबसे important होती हैं. First is the freight. Now in case of freight and transportation, I see that businesses don't have records. There are no proper records that are maintained to check कि भाई अगर 100 रुपया ट्रांसपोर्ट का खर्चा हुआ है तो 100 रुपया पे GST liability भरी है क्या? Unfortunately, काफी बार मैंने देखा है कि रिवर्स चार्ज के जो ट्रांजैक्शंस होती हैं उनकी जो डिटेलिंग होती है वो एक्सेल शीट्स में होती है, which is a big problem. Ocean freight GST is not applicable. We have now Supreme Court judgment on this particular aspect. तो ये पूरी ledgers है जिससे आपको देखना है कि भाई whether there is any liability under reverse charge. इसमें एक और important aspect है import of service. काफी बार foreign companies के साथ में जो transactions होते हैं, it is possible that the GST is liable on the same under reverse charge. उससे हमको देखना पड़ेगा what are the foreign currency transactions by looking at TDS under section 195, your income tax return submissions, and obviously the client's data. Then very importantly एक और चीज होती है services by government. Government से आप कोई service ले लो उस पर भी reverse charge आता है, and ये एक fundamental area है जहाँ पर businesses miss करते हैं. And I'll tell you what, when the government charge you various fees for licenses and all those things, it could be possible that it is liable under RCM. And if you're not paying that, then you are in a problem. you need to review critically the blocked credits, यानी जो credits blocked है, जो नहीं मिलता है, हमको एक और चीज देखनी होती है. बहुत बार ये एक में फंडामेंटल मैंने देखा है, we always believe we are an auditor. हम एक ऑडिटर के माइंडसेट से जाते हैं, we lose our acumen as a consultant. तो हमको लगता है ये इनएलिजिबल है, वो क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा, ये क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा, and we say it's with a lot of proud or a lot of pride. Then our approach can also be reverse. कि जो क्लाइंट ने क्रेडिट रिवर्स किया वो मिल सकता है क्या? We should always look at value addition. Let me tell you, eventually what is going to matter is what is the value addition that you are doing in the business when you are not playing the role of an auditor. Obviously, when you are playing putting a hat of an auditor, you need to audit. But when you are also a GST consultant for the company, see what is the value addition that you can do. See what is that they have treated as a blocked credit. हम ऑडिट में क्या करते हैं, हम देखते हैं एक्सपेंसेस, अच्छा ये इनएलिजिबल है, ये इनएलिजिबल है, ये आपने क्यों लिया, चलो ये रिवर्स करो. बट हमने रिवर्स भी करना चाहिए. अरे आपने जिसको इनएलिजिबल किया वो एलिजिबल है क्या? रिवर्स एक्सरसाइज भी हमको करना चाहिए. दैट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. A lot of procurement structuring planning can be done. You purchase from composition dealer or you shift it. All to be compliances has to be verified. काफी companies GSTR to be reconciliations manually कर रहे हैं. Today there are so many softwares available. We need to support the clients with all these softwares. Then let me see some important aspect in. हाँ, ये एक बहुत बड़ा issue है where CGST credit and SGST credit has been wrongly taken as IGST credit, or IGST credit has been wrongly taken as CGST SGST. Let me tell you, in all these cases, you need not reverse the credit. Credit reverse करने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है. Simply entry को rectify करो और department को बताओ. अभी recently circular आया है कि place of supply cannot be a reason for denial of credit. Take advantage of that circular and take the benefit. No question of reversing the credit. जहां पर बिजनेस का टैक्सेबल और एग्जाम दोनों है, लेट्स से 100 रुपए का रेवेन्यू और उसमें 60 रुपीज टैक्सेबल है, 40 रुपीज एग्जाम्प्ट है, तो वहां पर एक और इंपॉर्टेंट चेक पॉइंट आता है एक्सपेंडिचर में कि व्हाट इज द रिवर्सल ऑफ आईटीसी रिक्वायर्ड. नाउ लेट मी टेल यू, देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ प्लानिंग पॉसिबिलिटी ओवर देयर. लॉट ऑफ प्लानिंग पॉसिबिलिटी. आई हैव सीन बिजनेसेस रिवर्सिंग अननेसेसरी क्रेडिट. हर चीज को कॉमन में डाल दिया. अरे भाई कोई चीज अगर डायरेक्टली एग्जाम्प्ट के लिए है तो उसी पे रिवर्स करो ना. Why do you want to treat everything as common? वहाँ पर bucketing of credit is very very important aspect which businesses miss out. Then obviously certain other aspects that need to verify. Time limit for under section 16 subsection 4. ये एक बहुत बड़ा common issue है कि मार्च की रिटर्न सितंबर तक फाइल ही नहीं हुई, अक्टूबर तक फाइल ही नहीं हुई, अभी डिपार्टमेंट बोल रहा है आईटीसी रिवर्स करो. There is no question of reversal. Because GST law does not mandate to make the payment at the time of filing returns. ये तो गलती से GST पोर्टल में ये restriction डाला है, and this particular thing needs to be challenged. Just today afternoon I got one case on the same issue. So all these things are again very important things to be looked at when it comes to reversal of ITC. And again, for 2A 2B mismatch, I am very clear. 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21, 21, 22 up to December, there is no question of 2A 2B reconciliation and the reversal. Reversal अगर आएगा तो in my opinion it will come only from 1st of October 2022, not beyond that, not before that. And उसके बाद भी there are some constitutional challenges, but then see हम client को हर चीज constitution के basis पर नहीं advise कर सकते हैं. We need to be practical. We are all telling client कि जहां पर reversal, जहां पर mismatch है, आप vendor को pay मत करो. But for the past, we are not asking them to reverse. So please, वहां पर reversing, is not suggested. Very recently, there is a circular. आप सभी को पता है कि चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट का सर्टिफिकेट लो, अगर चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट सर्टिफाई करता है तो वो बेसिस पर businesses can claim the input tax credit for financial year 17-18 and financial year 18-19. तो ये सभी चीजें हमको देखनी होती है in the ITC side review. Then notes to accounts में it's more of what are the business verticals, what are the notices that the client have, कहाँ litigation चालू है, क्या stage पर litigation चालू है, क्यों litigation हो रहा है, what is the root cause of litigation, what are the probabilities of litigation, so, and what is the sales mix of the client, export vis-a-vis domestic, which categories they are dealing in. So all these things we come to know. We also come to know related party disclosures in notes to accounts, foreign income disclosures, pending cases, contingent liabilities, future expansion plans, जिसमें ITC की कोई planning है क्या, तो ये सभी चीजें notes to accounts हमको पता चलती हैं, through which we can link it with GST and see any implications from the closure perspective. Okay, sorry, I have to run little fast in the end because the time was coming up, because this topic is such that it requires 3 to 4 hours of deliberation, but then I have to give a flavor or a point to communicate that GST year-end closure activities have more things to do than mere reconciliation and number crunching. And let me tell you, we can add phenomenal value in the client's business if we do our GST reviews properly. एक आर्टिकल स्टूडेंट्स को अपने ऑफिस में एक मैसेज हमको देना है दैट जीएसटी में बहुत स्कोप है, जीएसटी में बहुत अपॉर्चुनिटीज है. फर्स्ट अपने आप को हमको कन्विंस होना चाहिए कि जीएसटी में बहुत स्कोप है. ये बहुत गलत मैसेज जा रहा है दैट देयर इज नो स्कोप इन द एंटायर प्रोफेशन. टुडे आर्टिकल्स फील दैट इन्वेस्टमेंट एडवाइजरी करो, स्टॉक मार्केट में, वैल्यूएशन में, यही चीजों में स्कोप है. देयर इज नो स्कोप इन आवर डे टू डे प्रोफेशन. इट्स वेरी वेरी बैड मैसेज दैट इज गोइंग. Let me tell you one thing, that our country is a developing country, and in our country the economy is booming multifold, and government is needed to do tremendous capex. आज की डेट में in US, European countries, the capex is already in place. They need to incur only operational and maintenance expenses. अपनी कंट्री में दुनिया भर का पैसा सिर्फ कैपेक्स में डालना है गवर्नमेंट को अगले 5-10 साल. आपने देखा है ये बजट में 10 लाख करोड़ वाज द स्पेंडिंग टुवर्ड्स इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. तो जब गवर्नमेंट अगले 10 साल में इतना पैसा कैपेक्स में अगर गवर्नमेंट को डालना है, डेवलपमेंट करना है, तो ये पैसा कहाँ से आएगा? ये पैसा टैक्सेशन से आएगा. और ये टैक्सेशन कैसे आएगा? व्हेन गवर्नमेंट को दे हैव टू ट्वीक अराउंड विद द टैक्सेशन, and the moment government is going to tweak around the taxation, there will be disputes, there will be litigation, there will be issues, there will be anomalies, and all these places consultants would be required. So if we believe that there is no scope in income tax or GST, we are in the wrong direction. There is tremendous scope, provided we are doing good work in a right manner and not just as a superficial activity. So with this, I would like to conclude my session on the topic of precautions to be taken. Before I close, let me take up the questions that are there.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you, Rajesh. How to do valuation in JDA? Okay, Shilpa madam, ये तो बहुत complicated question आपने पूछ लिया. In case of joint development agreements, अभी जो amendment आया है, in that amendment it has been mentioned that you need to do the valuation as per the first sale flat. यानी जो भी first sale flat आप independent customer को दे रहे हो, उस basis पर आप valuation करो. But then I have some reservation over there, जहाँ पर I feel, in my opinion, that is not appropriate. You cannot compare a JDA transaction with a non-JDA. They are not the comparables, because एक केस में land है सामने वाले का, दूसरे केस में you are giving with land. One first sale में आप बोल रहे हो 1/3 की land deduction करो, whereas the land value itself can be more than 1/3 or less than 1/3, which is not a comparable. And third very important aspect is that this is not floating from section 15 of the CGST Act, which means the rule is not in line with the Act. Hence, I am of the opinion that we can also opt for cost plus 10% model. But then I do not want to give this as a thumb rule. Each fact has to be looked at separately. If as per section 13(8), POS is Maharashtra for providing service outside India, whether we need to pay GST as B2C, POS is Maharashtra for providing service outside India. हाँ, तो वैसे भी B2C ही करना पड़ेगा ना, B2C में ही जाएगा वो, because it is not a zero rated supply, because place of supply is in India. And you need to disclose as B2C, CGST, SGST, or IGST whatsoever and pay the taxes. Factory license, drug approval charges, pollution certificate, whether GST. So देखिए अभी देखो pollution पे GST नहीं लगेगा because there is an exemption. I think factory license पर भी exemption है. Drug approval charges देखना पड़ेगा. That is something I need to see. But for factory license and pollution, there is an exemption which is there. Can you please quote the circular where you refer POS related number 188, 187, 188 या 189 तीन में से आप एक देखो बहुत recently आया था बोल तो just about 2 months back it was there. Just see 187, 188, you will get an answer. What is the implication if at the time of credit note pass of unregistered recipient don't pass e-way bill? Credit note pass of unregistered recipient. Sorry, I'm not able to understand this question. One of the conditions for tax-free export is collection in foreign. Now India is promoting bilateral to pay. Whether it is a no, it is not a breach. I think. See, there is a circular which says that as long as it is allowed as per RBI guidelines, it will be considered as if there is a repatriation. I don't see an issue. In case of game zones located in malls, whether it is on purchase or gift items which are given to customer, 100% is eligible. It is not a gift. देखिए, there is nothing called gift. Game zone पे आप जाके पहले token लेते हो, वो gift थोड़ी ना है. It is not a gift. ITs is eligible. See, I'll tell you what. There is a landmark Supreme Court judgment of Sonia Bhatia. जहाँ पर क्या बोलता है ना, gift is something that is given graciously without expecting anything in return. अगर वो है तो गिफ्ट है. गेम जोन में they expect you to spend for the token. There is complete expectation of it. Then there is two more questions. Is it required to keep separate books of accounts for SRA project and normal commercial sale within the same project by the builder? Whether ITC can be denied on SRA project being no consideration for sale? SRA project and normal commercial sale. See, basically you need to maintain project-wise accounting as far as GST is concerned. From April 19 onwards, project-wise accounting is required. That is something to be noted. What about exporter? Does he need to reverse credit on goods exported? No. Exporter is a zero-rated supplier. They can claim refund. No question of reversal for exporters. In fact, refund मिलेगा आपको. जो भी आपका accumulate हो रहा है credit, उसका refund मिलेगा. There is one last question I'll take from Aman. What is the implication if e-way bill is not generated at the time of passing credit note of credit note pass करते time पे e-way bill generate करना ही नहीं है. Let me tell you, e-way bill is not a document for accounting. E-way bill is a document for movement of goods. तो movement तो पहले हो गया. अभी credit note के time पे अगर goods return आ रहा है तो e-way bill रहेगा. लेकिन if the credit note is given as a matter of discount or as a matter of reduction in price, then e-way bill is not required for credit note. जरूरत नहीं है e-way bill. तो जब goods movement हो रहा है तो e-way bill चाहिए, नहीं तो नहीं चाहिए. Okay, so thank you. Over to you, Rajesh sir.
Rajesh bhai. Okay, I'll give the formal vote of thanks to you. Ravi ji, this was an excellent presentation. Excellent, and by all means, you have imbibed successfully on the minds of the participants that GST is much beyond reconciliations, the year-end reconciliations and 9 and 9C. You have to go line by line in the profit and loss account and balance sheet to identify certain nuances and significant issues. So it's much beyond reconciliations. Thank you very much.
Thank
you. If you agree, we can share the your presentation on branch website.
Absolutely.
So that it will be beneficial for the participants
yes.
to refer it.
Yes, if I could not answer any questions, you can just write it on my email ID. I will answer the balance questions you've left out, and you can surely share the PPT.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Pune branch, Shikesh, for coordinating, and Rajesh bhai for for giving me the opportunity, and to all the participants for patient listening.
We should thank you, sir, for your valuable time you have given.
So it's my pleasure, totally.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.